Welcome, friends, to the TeleWellness Hub podcast. I'm Marta Hamilton, your host. It's a space where listening is not just a simple passive act, but it's an act of self-care. And today we get to check in with Martin Pytela, who is a proven functional medicine expert and metabolic typing coach. His mission is restoring vitality to you and the planet. He uses his vast knowledge and experience to help thousands around the world discover how they can improve their health. Martin has coached over 12,000 clients, very impressive, since 2011, and his courses have over 19,000 students. Natural healing is an art and not an easy feat in today's fast food society that has us eating foods grown in depleted soils, overcooked, overprocessed, or hormone injected and loaded with antibiotics. Foods in our supermarkets can't give the body what it needs, even if we eat only organically grown, raw vegetables, and organically grown meats. The nutrients are simply not there, so today's supplementation is a necessity. And so, Martin, welcome. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
I'm really happy to be here.
Yes, my background is, as we shared before we hit record, is in health psychology. I'm a counselor, but I'm also really, as a parent, as a person who grew up with a father in agriculture. He has a PhD in agriculture. When I saw you, your background, what you offer, and just when thinking about the concerns about our diet, our nutrition, the intersection between what we eat and how we feel and what we think, I'm so grateful for you taking the time to share your insight and your wisdom. And before we dive into some of that, and I should preface by saying that I shared before we hit record, like this might need to be a multi episode series. So we'll try to get as much as we can now, but there's so much knowledge here that I'm excited for everyone to hear. Before we dive into that, I'm curious if you don't mind sharing with us a little bit about why do you do the wellness work that you do?
Right. Classic, typical wounded hero journey. I I grew up happy. My dad was a veterinarian. I believed in science and the
Mhm.
medical method and all of that. And I trusted the professionals and I came in naive. And at 25 years of age, with freshly earned health insurance and dental coverage, I walked
Mhm.
into a dentist's office and I said, I haven't had a checkup in a couple of years. Uh, well, check me out. And the first question out of their mouth was, do you have dental insurance?
Mhm.
I proudly said, yes, I do. I didn't realize that was, oh, yeah, he won't care what we do. And I didn't. And so I trusted this guy with
Mm.
white coat and diploma on the wall. And well, they told me that I needed 12 fillings because my teeth were not right. And the insurance plan covered mercury amalgam fillings, not the fancier, uh, back when this was 1977, composite fillings. And so I said, oh, sure, go ahead. And in 4 sessions, they put in 12 mercury fillings, and then my health took a total nosedive.
Wow. I'm so
My
sorry.
original education is computer science and business administration. So I was working in the field of computer science and that then emerging personal computers. Like I was there when we were teaching people what computer aided drafting and
Oh,
desktop
wow.
publishing was all about.
At the frontier. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, young days. And so I was earning well, but my health was taking a total nosedive. First, my body started breaking down. Carpal tunnel, plantar fasciitis, dental problems, periodontal disease, and then allergies, and then metabolic problems. Like it was piling on. And I kept seeing professionals for it. I saw an orthopedic surgeon. That didn't help. Chiropractic. I became quite addicted to chiropractic because as my body was falling apart,
Mhm.
uh, they were always able to put it back together, but it wouldn't hold. So I had to go in
Mhm.
every 3, 4 days to put it back together, or else I became very debilitated. And I saw naturopaths for the allergies, and I started learning things. And at some point, I think it was about 7 or 8 years in, I had this realization that there's no way that these professionals are going to help me. So I went and started reading,
Wow.
which this is long before internet. This is like early 80s, yeah, to
Hmm.
late 80s. And so there was libraries and books, and I have like a whole lot of books,
Yeah.
more than what's behind me, that I've read, and
Hmm.
reports and studies and you name it. And so at some point, I finally had this illumination. In business consulting, you do always ask if there's a problem, you ask what's causing it.
Hmm.
In medical world, they don't. They say, "Oh,
Hmm.
you have a symptom. Let's work on that."
Hmm.
So all these people would, you have a back problem. We'll put the back together. Oh, you have an allergy. Well, we'll take some antioxidants or antihistamines or whatever. I remember the doctor telling me, "Yeah, yeah, we have Benadryl for that." And I asked, "So is that going to cure me?" And he said, "No, that's a lifetime."
Yeah, that's a very hopeless
Not
place to
how I
be.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not how I was trained, and that's not what I was going to accept.
Right.
So
Right.
at some point, I gained enough understanding, and I figured out what the problem was, which was my entire metabolic system in the body was breaking down because of the high levels of mercury, and I had some lead too. So once that set in, I figured out how to undo it, and I figured out the whole methodology. So at some point, I decided to pay it forward. I switched my careers from being a business management consultant to being a health nut and talking to
Wow.
people.
I'm sure very like transformative process you went through, but I imagine how rewarding to see the transformation and healing on a root cause level, like you mentioned, for thousands. I mean, what a way to spread wellness into the world. I mean, truly. And that's why
Mhm.
I'm just so fascinated when people turn their pain into the opportunity to share with
Right.
humanity, you know?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is where your schooling kicks in. I also, along the way, became quite educated in the way of uh, how the head works, right? It's
Mhm.
not what happens, it's what you do with it. It's how you respond to the inputs. And I
Absolutely.
absolutely refused to be a victim. I decided that I had to own the problem. And that's actually the single one thing that differentiates a person with a chronic health problem, the one who gets better and who does not, is how they perceive themselves. The victim perception is not very helpful.
So,
You need,
speaking of that, I'm curious if we could dive in. Oh, there's just so much I want to ask. But maybe for those listening and for the first time, they've never even heard of this idea of looking at like your metabolic type. Can you share a little bit about, because am
sure.
anticipating a multi-series on
Yeah,
this. So if we could start there, just to share a little bit about how this
yeah.
experience led for you to deep dive into research, use your skills, your training to put this knowledge and create something, a path forward, a plan, it sounds like, for you to find healing. And how did that become a core of looking at
Hmm.
how your genetics and lifestyle can intersect for health?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. In 2010, 2011, I fell upon this. This whole thing was published in 1987 based on a whole lot of previous research. It was known that people are more acidic or more alkaline, but it was not really understood that it was actually affected by how we eat foods. And it's the macronutrients, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And the combination of those will affect how the internal works reacts and creates a pH shift. And the internal pH, venous blood pH, is either more alkaline or more acidic in response to what we're eating. And so we knew we had these terms from before. There was this term called oxidizer. We had a fast oxidizer and slow oxidizer. The fast oxidizer is somebody who's really good at converting food into energy. They're typically the hunter genetics, hunters and fishermen. And the slow oxidizers were people who were poor converters of
Mm.
food into energy. And they needed to be fed the farmer food or the
Mm.
tropical food type of things.
Mhm.
And then we had another system, which was known as the autonomic nervous system, which is the control mechanism of all things related to the digestion and metabolics and whatever. And we had either sympathetic side or parasympathetic side dominant. And they actually control whether you are in the fight or flight, the sympathetic side, or repair and digest, the
Mhm.
parasympathetic side. And that also regulates all the pH or is affected by the internal pH. And so here comes the important bit. When you're overly acidic, let's define the middle. The middle is 7.35 on the pH scale or minus 25 millivolt on the ORP scale. If you're drifting into alkalinity, you're going to be procrastinating. And if you go
Mm.
further out, you're going to be despondent. And if you go further out, you're going to hit depression.
Mm.
On the acidic side, first you'll be impatient, then you'll lose your social graces, then you hit anger and road rage. And if it's outward directed, that's the rage out. If it's inward directed, you'll be anxious. And that
Mm.
would be, you could be anxious about your past, reliving your failings and
Mm.
going over that, or anxious about your future, just painting pictures in your head just how bad things are going to turn out.
Right.
And so we, and this is then affected this way. The fast oxidizer is made more alkaline, or actually all
Oh.
oxidizers are made more alkaline by fats and proteins, and they're also made acidic by carbohydrates. But the autonomics are flipped. They
Oh,
are
wow.
more alkaline by carbs and more acidic by fats and proteins. So it's sort of like being left-handed or right-handed.
Right.
You can't play a left-handed guitar if you're a right-handed person. It's just not going to work. The strings are in the wrong places and everything is wrong.
Yes.
Um,
Fascinating.
so to explain it further, yeah, to explain it further, so we now have people reacting to a meal depending on how it's combined. If it's rich in carbs, you could be drifting into alkalinity or acidity depending on your genetics. So
Wow.
that's the bottom line of it. So here you are eating food, and one of us is becoming anxious, another person is becoming despondent from that same meal.
Yes. I'm really thinking about my own personal life. My husband and I have talked about this. I feel like I had no idea there was a whole world that would study this, and it makes sense, because we share no genetic. We've done the genetic ancestry map, and we know we share no genetic overlays. And we've talked about, well, probably your ancestors ate totally different foods than my ancestors, right? And I think
Right.
our
Mm-hmm.
reactions to it would be different, but we're sharing the same meals, right? And that makes sense. And then add the layer of probably now the way our
Right.
food is made. Like that's another layer.
Mhm. Yes, yes.
So,
Yeah, so the best example I can give you is a cocktail party where alcohol is served.
mhm,
The people who get acidified by alcohol, those are the oxidizers, they will
mhm,
start getting louder and then argumentative. And then if they keep going, they'll actually pick a fight.
mm.
The autonomics, they start with being a little too emotional. They start
Oh,
oversharing, saying things they wish they didn't say. And then they
mhm.
start crying about things and then they go to sleep.
Wow. Yes.
And so you can watch next time you go to a cocktail party
Yeah.
where there's
I'll
alcohol
be watching.
uh, served
Yes.
your watch. This person reacts to carbohydrates by becoming more acidic, and
Ah.
this one by becoming more alkaline.
That's fascinating. How do you even go about figuring out what type you are, or if you tend to go more acidic? I mean, I'm sure it's
Well, you can do a direct challenge, like eat
mhm.
some fat, like take a spoonful of coconut oil and lick it right off the spoon, and within 15 minutes you will have your reaction to fat. And so if that drives you into the anxiety kind of thing, then you're autonomic dominant. If it drives
Oh,
you into feeling more peaceful and calm, then you're an oxidizer. And then you can do an opposite challenge. You can just do a glucose challenge, like I mentioned alcohol. It's a
right,
fine source of carbs, but you can
right,
go eat a banana and drink some orange juice, or have a bowl of I don't know, porridge or something like that,
right.
and that's a straight hit of carbs.
Mhm.
And you will have your answer. Oh, the way I react to carbs is.
Wow, and this is huge then in terms of your food choice for your mental health and your mindset and everything.
Mhm. And also, now you know your antidote. So if you are, for
Right.
example, feeling anxious and you know that you're an oxidizer, you know you must reach for some fats to calm yourself down.
Mhm.
Or if you happen to be just totally lazy, not wanting to do anything, and you know you're
Mhm.
an autonomic, you know you're
Mhm.
too alkaline, you need to hit yourself with some fats.
Mhm.
So it's
Wow.
always, oh yeah,
It's a
I know
very
how to fix
empowering
this.
thing too then. It's an
Mhm.
empowerment for the individual, to take also
Right.
some sense of,
Yeah.
control, if you will, over their own health.
And here goes. 75% of all prescriptions that are filled are for mind altering substances, either dealing with anxiety or depression. Let that sink in.
Wow. That's a huge.
Probably 80% of that is correctable with diet alone. Not diet, choices, right? Like,
Right.
okay, you can
Right
have a
choices.
potato that's a straight carb. Yeah, you can have a potato that's a straight carb. You can put butter or sour cream or bacon bits on it. That's fats and proteins. They are balancing each other out.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah,
bowl
I'm
of rice with a salad. That's all carby. Pile on some olive oil. Pile on a piece of fish, salmon, something like that. That's fats and proteins. Now you're steering. All of a sudden, you have a tool that lets you stay in the middle of the road rather than being in the ditch.
Mhm. Wow, I'm just
Yeah,
thinking of all the implications too for our own, of course, mental health, but also the statistics for children. Children are showing some really concerning rates. As a therapist
yeah,
myself, who's worked in schools and
right.
with kids for anxiety,
Yes.
depression, it's
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
huge. Yeah.
ADD ADD
Yes.
behaviors are largely food driven.
You're
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
they
So,
are.
because I've seen the emerging research on sleep and ADHD, right? Maybe there's sleep apnea, or maybe it's
Well,
sleep, but we
well,
don't think we
look,
sleep and we eat. How do we keep ourselves balanced, our
yeah.
sleep and our diet?
Well, listen, yeah, listen to this bit. So
Mhm.
you cannot go to sleep if you're in the sympathetic fight flight overdrive.
Right, of
You have to
course.
get out of it, and you need to switch into the rest repair parasympathetic. Otherwise, you will not fall
Right.
asleep. You'll be sitting there wired.
And you think about
So how
everything.
do
The
you do
tired
that?
but
Well, with
wired.
food,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes. So with food, you need to first know: am I autonomic or am I oxidizer? Oxidizer must push fats. Autonomic must push carbs to
Wow.
calm down. The
Mhm.
most calming mineral, of course, is magnesium. The most calming food is chlorophyll, which happens to be also rich in magnesium.
Wow. Yeah, so
Yeah,
when
little
you
bits
talk
like
about
that.
things like magnesium, I'm thinking also like supplementation, right? So, and this is one of your areas of
Mhm.
expertise. So, what is the role of supplementation in achieving
Oh
this
boy!
optimal
Well, look
nutrition?
at this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the autonomic nervous system is
Mhm.
driven by calcium magnesium balances. Calcium is the driver toward sympathetic,
Oh,
magnesium
yeah.
toward parasympathetic. So, and with every muscle contraction, calcium is the contraction, magnesium is the relaxation, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
your heart 60 beats a minute. Calcium, magnesium, calcium, magnesium.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and I'm
Every
even
nerve
thinking the
signal.
brain, sodium. I mean, there's all kinds of there's so
Yeah,
much
yeah,
involved to have our thoughts to move
right.
our
But
body,
still, so
everything.
in
Mhm.
baseline, if you want to wake up, push calcium. If you have a overly active elimination, peristalsis,
Mhm.
something like diarrhea, calcium
Uh-huh.
will slow it down.
Wow. Yeah.
Magnesium will speed it up. So if you tend to be constipated, you need to push magnesium. If you're nervous, you need to push magnesium. If you're overly sedated, you need to push calcium.
Wow. Yes.
And then, of course, there's more, right? So there's
Yeah.
the eating for your blood type. Peter the Adamo, he put that out. So we
Mhm.
have blood type O, A, B, and AB. What he discovered is that there are genetic misses, as in you do not have the equipment to digest certain foods. So, in short, like for example, blood type O's do badly on grains and dairy, cow dairy. The blood type A's don't do great on chicken. Blood type B's don't do great with pork and shrimp. Well, go figure. People from Middle East, like Jewish and Arabs, they are mostly blood type B's.
Oh,
It's
wow.
right in the Old Testament, do not eat
Yeah.
pork and do not eat shrimp. Well,
Yeah.
I can confirm for you that you don't have the equipment to do well on that.
Mhm. Right. Yes.
So that is also part of, if you tell us your blood type, we'll tell you how to structure your meals, as in what you delete, what you don't eat.
Wow. Can I ask, so because you've helped so many people and you have courses. I forget the platform you have your courses on. But
Udemy.
Udemy. You have helped so many, I mean, truly thousands of people. What does it look like for someone wanting to do a session with you or start this journey and they
Mm,
decide, you know what, I want to be healthy? What would that look like?
yeah.
I know that every individual is
Well,
different, right? Because
yeah.
I'm excited because I feel like I could refer clients who don't have a clinical diagnosis, right? So we can get into like looking for problems and health. I've
Mhm,
been someone who's had to work through insurance as well. And do I get a session
mhm,
or I have to prove that they need sessions and looking at
yeah.
like that's
Okay.
probably like a series two on on that. But I'm so
All
excited
right.
about what you can do. What does that look like for someone who wants to
Right.
work with you? Mhm.
Right. So, well, I have the philosophy is, if you want to do the work yourself, I'll give you the tools.
Yeah.
Or if you want a shortcut, if you want the do it for me, okay, I have some tools. They'll cost you money, but I'll get you to the goal faster.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the funds, but you have the will, I offer you all the bits and pieces that you can actually learn and figure out what you need to figure out.
I
But
love that you
if you're
offer
one of
that.
those executive, yeah,
Mhm.
and if you're one of the executive types who wants to just, hey, come on, just tell me, I say,
Mhm.
well, it'll cost you, and here we go.
Mhm.
And it's not expensive. I mean, $100 buys you the test and an initial orientation,
Oh,
and
wow.
then we need to, you can. We don't charge lots. We charge
No,
$30
because
for a
even if I'm
15
thinking
minute
of even
session.
if you have insurance, I mean, I've had to pay at least that just for to meet my,
Yeah,
for a visit,
right.
just for a visit.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
we're about the copay.
Yeah.
I always laugh because people contact me and say, "Well, I met this functional doctor, and he says, yeah, 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 we can do this. Please come up with $6,000. We'll do the tests, and I have all the answers for you."
Mm,
I
mhm.
talked to people who spent $30,000 and didn't get any further ahead because they just kept testing and testing and testing. Um, I'll give you an illustration. A lot
Mhm.
of problems happen because of the industrial age. People are toxic. There is a lot of heavy metals and volatile organic compounds and
Mhm.
plastic type of things in us, and they
Mhm.
cause a lot of dysfunction. dysregulation. They block normal expression of the internal systems.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody is going to get right until they detox.
Mm-hmm.
So you can spend a lot of money testing whether you are or aren't toxic or how toxic you are.
Yes.
Or you can just do the detox. Like in general, you can spend $300 on a ICP-MS urine test that tells you what's in you. Or
Mm.
you can spend 150 on a hair trace mineral analysis.
Oh,
And
wow.
then you need to do the actual detox. And that's usually about $300-400. And then if you really need to know, then you need to spend the test again.
Mm. Like if it
But
was
at the end of
effective.
the detox, yeah, but at the end
Oh,
of the detox, you'll feel better because your
mm.
functionality or functioning is going to start improving.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Uh,
So yeah, the
so the
detox.
so the process, yeah, yeah. You asked me how do we do that? So
Yeah, I was just
if you
curious
are
about the
going to take the
process. Mhm.
service,
Mhm.
yeah, if you're going to take the service, then first thing you're going to do is you spend $97, do the metabolic typing. We give you the answers. We do a session how to now teach you to understand what's going to go on after you eat a specific meal. And then we have these tools that help you steer better. And we keep narrowing until you are pretty clear. You will know how to run your life with that.
Wow, that's incredible and so
And
empowering, I think. That's huge. In
mhm.
a very unfortunately, sometimes medical model can be very disempowering, and I love that you're bringing empowerment to people. And I think there's so much talk before we hit record. We talked. There's so much talk about your metabolic type and things for weight and I mean, this is so much more than weight. It
Oh,
sounds like it's so
yeah.
much more than weight. Yeah.
Okay. We didn't get to mention, or I didn't get to mention the second part of the test. We will also answer what's your endocrine dominance, of which there are four: thyroid, adrenal, pituitary, and in women also could be
Mhm.
ovarian. And the thyroid types usually crave starchy foods and gain weights with carbs and lose weight with fat. So the thyroid types on a keto diet will be skinny. But the adrenal types on that same diet will be gaining weight because
Mm.
their food attraction is usually savory and they gain weight all over, not on the belly, but everywhere. And um, and then the pituitary, they are attracted to creamy foods like whipping cream, ice cream, fluffy stuff, brain foods. They tend to be the nerdy types.
Okay.
Their body type is sort of like a Cabbage Patch doll model. And
Oh.
for them, the most healthy food are offal, as in the brain, heart, tongue, all the high purine food.
Oh, wow. That's very cool.
Now, we, of course, have all of these glands, all of us, right? So
Mhm.
the dominant will push you into one of the four corners. You still have the whole picture, but you will have a preference how your body will act in its most, what is it, common mode.
Mhm. I'm gonna ask a question that may be a little bit loaded, but it's a topic of conversation, a hot topic of conversation, which is Ozempic. What are like all those for weight control? What have you
Okay.
seen research when it comes to people
Oh
are
man,
trying?
this is,
Yeah, because it's pretty new.
you're throwing in a very, very big question. I don't know just how deep I want to go with it, but
Okay,
the
yeah, I
starting
realize
point is
there's a
this.
lot there. Yeah.
Well, the starting point is this: the industrial complex, which consists of banking, food, agriculture, fertilizers, insurance, medicine, all of that. They all are motivated financially to keep you sick.
Mm,
Heal a person, lose a client or customer.
mhm.
They don't want to heal you. They want you sick and on the drip. So they grow foods food-like substances that keep us quite sick. I mean, the data is showing it clearly. The rates of obesity, heart disease, autism, all of that, those are all rising. They're rising mainly because we have such crappy foods sold
Yeah.
in stores
Yeah.
that are then cause for illness, which is then healed, not healed, treated by the medical system. So Ozempic is a fantastic solution for overeating. So the food industry is producing highly addictive food-like substances that are ultra
Yeah.
processed that you end up eating, and they force you to eat more than you should have or than you naturally would have. So you're now
Mhm.
gaining weight. So now we're going to use a technological solution in the form of this thing that numbs or blocks your stomach
Mm.
from working,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
Stomach paralysis is a common side effect of taking Ozempic.
Well,
Don't get me
yeah.
started on the side effects, right?
Yeah.
This
I know.
thyroid cancer, pancreatitis, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the problems that are going to come with this are
Mm.
huge.
Mhm.
But our society has been training people to demand an easy button. Push the easy button. Don't don't make it hard. Help me quick.
Right. And probably too,
And
like you mentioned in oh, I'm sorry to interrupt, but also like you mentioned, Martin, in the beginning, we trust people who have the diploma, the white coat, and there are wonderful physicians out there. I know that there's a place, a space, of course, but I think sometimes like your experience where you present with an issue and you are trusting their suggestion and you had the long-term effects of that. I hear your protective heart for people on who may come to a
Mhm.
provider thinking, this is the best for me because this is what I've been told and it's easy and it's a path that's I can check
Yeah,
off and for insurance maybe and but I
yeah.
hope. Yeah.
Well, to say this, most doctors probably go to school thinking that they're going to be helping people.
Yeah.
But because the entire education system and the prescription system and the pharmacies and the whatever is owned by the cartel, they really just become salespeople for drugs. And the only thing they're taught in their school is not nutrition, they're taught prescription. So they
Hmm.
diagnose a problem and prescribe for it. And they do not go for the cause, they go for the symptom. So
Mm.
if your symptom is obesity, Ozempic is a wonderful solution. But you should be asking, what is the cause of this obesity? And it is food that's too rich in calories and too poor in nutrients. Food like. I call
Yeah,
it food
food.
porn. It addicts you because it feels in your mouth that you want to eat more of it. It's designed that way.
Right. And
So
what you're
it's not your fault in a way, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But there you are.
Yeah, and what you're saying now, we now that we have the technology to measure what's going on in the brain, what's going on in the body with these foods, it's really what you're saying. I'm sure it was like very radical when you first started diving into, like you said, there was no Google to go search up a lot of these articles. I mean, we now definitely have the technology to show what you're saying to the point where, well, some of it, right? But to the point where, I look at like for me I'm thinking as a mom with young kids, I look at what's in the cafeteria. I look at what foods are in the grocery stores here that are banned in other countries because of their ingredients, because yes, they can become altered to be more, like you mentioned, addictive or I mean, there's
Mhm.
known carcinogenic or toxic ingredients and it's alarming. It's alarming. So we need people like you to bring some of this information. Some people listening right now, like this might be the first time that they've heard some of this. It's for me, I didn't know about the looking at your metabolic type and looking at your blood and look at the alkaline. I hadn't it wasn't until I started doing research for this episode that I learned more. So this might be blowing someone's mind if you're listening and it's blowing your mind. I mean, I'm sure there's so much to look into. What would you say for those, especially like parents? I'm thinking parents, and because we tend to, do things for others before we might do for ourselves, especially as parents.
Yeah, yeah, very good. Well, you have the right instincts. If you're a
Mhm.
mother, you're going to die for your child,
Right.
right? You're going to do everything. You will kill yourself trying to make sure your child is right,
Hmm.
which is the correct instinct. The DNA is programmed to procreate, right? The next
Hmm.
generation has to survive. If they don't, we're done. Well,
Hmm.
the DNA is done.
Right.
So, uh, yeah, what do you do? Well, number one, you need to realize that the system is rigged against you. Number two, you need to understand that water is polluted, air is polluted,
Mm.
and food is polluted, and your personal products like hygiene and laundry and furniture and car and everything, those are all made with no regard to how it affects you.
Mm.
The number one environment you need to protect is the microbiome within you and within your
Mm.
child. And if that microbiome isn't developed correctly, the whole thing goes bad. One of the worst things are, why do we put chlorine in water? To kill microbes. If you drink chlorinated water, you're killing the internal environment.
Mm.
The other really horrible antibiotic is called Roundup or glyphosate. That
Mm.
thing is now used on foods. It's used on wheat, lentils, chickpeas, and probably
Oh.
other things.
Oh
So
no.
if you are taking even just trace amounts of this thing into you, and you are because this thing is water soluble and it's on foods, therefore you are killing the microbiome.
Oh
If you're
wow.
killing the microbiome, you'll have dysbiosis. And for example, go find the study. Um, Autism or ADD
Yeah.
or whatever is
There's a lot.
associated with specific microbiome misconfigurations.
Hmm. Yes. I am seeing some of that emerging research. Um,
It's there.
in peer-reviewed journals, it's there too, it's there. And with anxiety is a big one too.
So there is a lot to be said about the diet and environment and how you treat yourself and what you know about yourself and how you start interacting with your family, with your food, with everything around you. But it's a big story, so maybe we should just pause here and start at the beginning next time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Martin. Stay tuned, listen in on the next episode where we're going to dive into what you can do in your home, in your environment, looking at the big story of how this impacts our life. Thank you so much, Martin, for being a part of our wellness journey today.